In the small coastal town of Porbandar, in the state of Gujarat, a life began that would one day stir the conscience of the entire world. On October 2, 1869, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born into a respected family. His father, Karamchand Gandhi, served as the chief minister of Porbandar, a man known for his integrity and wisdom in matters of state. His mother, Putlibai, was a deeply religious woman, whose life was a testament to devotion and self-discipline. She would often fast for long periods, a practice of spiritual cleansing and prayer that left a profound impression on her young son. The air in their home was filled with the gentle hum of religious tolerance, as people of different faiths, including Jains, Muslims, and Parsis, were frequent and welcome visitors. Mohandas was a quiet and shy boy, not one who seemed destined for greatness. His marriage came at the young age of 13, a common custom of the time. He was wed to Kasturbai Makanji Kapadia, who was also a teenager. A famous story from his youth tells of his experiment with stealing a small piece of gold from his brother to pay off a debt. The guilt he felt afterward was so immense that he could not bear it. He wrote a confession to his father expecting severe punishment. Instead, his father read the note, and with tears in his eyes tore it up. This act of forgiveness and love taught Mohandas a powerful lesson about the strength of truth and confession. At the age of 18, Mohandas made a decision that would forever alter the course of his life. He resolved to sail to London to study law and become a barrister. This was a radical step for a young man from his traditional community. Many elders warned against the journey, fearing he would lose his caste and his religious principles in the foreign and morally ambiguous land of England. His mother, Putlibai, was especially worried. She only gave her blessing after he took a solemn vow before a Jain monk, promising to abstain from wine, women, and meat. His arrival in London in 1888 was a profound culture shock. He was a shy young man from a small Indian town thrust into the heart of the world's largest empire. Initially, he tried desperately to become an English gentleman. He bought fashionable suits, took lessons in dancing, elocution, and even learned to play the violin. He soon realized that his attempts to mimic English society were not only expensive but also deeply inauthentic. It was a hollow pursuit that took him away from his true self and his purpose for being there. It was in London, ironically, that Gandhi began to explore his own heritage and the world's great religions with intellectual rigor. He joined the Theosophical Society, a group interested in universal brotherhood and ancient wisdom. For the first time, he read the sacred Hindu text in English translation and was profoundly moved by its teachings on selfless action and duty. After 3 years of diligent study, Gandhi was called to the bar in June 1891. He had successfully become a barrister, but more importantly, he had undergone a significant internal transformation. Upon his return to India, Gandhi's legal career struggled to take flight. He was too shy to speak up in court, and the complexities of Indian law seemed overwhelming. Then, an opportunity arose that seemed like a simple one-year contract. A trading firm in Natal, South Africa, needed a lawyer with knowledge of both Indian and English law to assist in a civil dispute. Seeing it as a chance to earn a living and gain experience, Gandhi accepted the offer and set sail in 1893. He had no idea that this temporary job would become a 21-year odyssey that would transform him from Mohandas, the quiet lawyer, into a formidable leader of men and a pioneer of social justice. The moment of his awakening came just a week after his arrival. While traveling by train to Pretoria, he was seated in a first-class compartment for which he held a valid ticket. At a station called Pietermaritzburg, a white passenger complained about a coolie, a derogatory term for an Indian, being in the first-class carriage. A railway official ordered Gandhi to move to the third-class van. Gandhi calmly refused, stating his right to be there. The official called the police, and Gandhi was forcefully thrown off the train onto the cold platform. He spent the entire night shivering in the dark, unlit waiting room, his mind racing. He could have taken the next train back to the coast and sailed home, but something inside him changed that night. He resolved to stay and fight the deep-seated disease of racial prejudice. This incident was not an isolated one. It was merely his first taste of the systemic humiliation faced by Indians in South Africa. He soon learned of the many discriminatory laws and practices. Indians were denied the right to vote, were forced to live in segregated areas, and could not walk on public footpaths or be out after 9 p.m. without a permit. He was kicked off a footpath by a sentry, and a stagecoach driver beat him for refusing to give up his seat to a white passenger. Each insult, each act of injustice, was a blow that chipped away at his timidity and forged a new resolve within him. This crucible of racial discrimination was the true beginning of Gandhi's public life. The shy lawyer found his voice, not in the courtroom arguing legal technicalities but in the public square, arguing for human dignity. In South Africa, Gandhi began to organize the Indian community to stand up for their rights. He knew that violence would be futile against the might of the colonial government. He sought a different path, a method of resistance that was both moral and powerful. He called this new method satyagraha, a Sanskrit term he coined himself. It translates to truth force or soul force. It was not passive resistance, which he saw as a weapon of the weak. Satyagraha was an active form of non-violent confrontation. It involved peacefully and openly breaking unjust laws, while remaining courteous and respectful to the opponents. One of his first major campaigns was against the Asiatic Registration Act of 1907 in the Transvaal. This law, known as the Black Act, required all Indians to be fingerprinted, registered, and to carry a certificate at all times. Gandhi saw this as an attack on the honor and dignity of the entire Indian community. He organized a mass meeting where thousands of Indians swore an oath not to comply with the law. The Satyagraha movement had begun. For years, Indians, including Gandhi himself, refused to register. They courted arrest, filled the jails, and suffered beatings and financial ruin. Gandhi was imprisoned multiple times, but the movement only grew stronger. The struggle was long and arduous, a true test of their commitment to nonviolence. To support the families of the imprisoned satyagrahis and to create a model for a simpler, more self-reliant life, Gandhi established two communal settlements. The first was Phoenix Farm, near Durban, and the second was Tolstoy Farm near Johannesburg. These farms were more than just refuges, they were living laboratories for his ideals. Residents lived a simple life, grew their own food, and performed all manual labor themselves, breaking down the barriers of caste and class. The struggle in South Africa reached its peak in 1913 with a protest against a new law that invalidated all non-Christian marriages. Gandhi organized a great march of thousands of Indian miners and their families from Natal into the Transvaal, an act of mass civil disobedience. The scale of the protest and the unwavering non-violence of the marchers drew worldwide attention and shamed the South African government. Finally, General John Smuts, Gandhi's chief adversary, was forced to negotiate, leading to a compromise that met many of the Indians' key demands. Satyagraha had won its first major victory. In 1915, after 21 transformative years in South Africa, Gandhi returned to India. He was now 45 years old, no longer the uncertain young lawyer who had left, but a seasoned leader with a powerful and tested philosophy. At the advice of his political mentor, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Gandhi spent his first year traveling across India by train, mostly in third-class compartments. He wanted to see the real India, to understand the lives of the millions of poor villagers who formed the nation's soul. His first major intervention in Indian politics came in 1917 in Champaran, a district in the state of Bihar. The tenant farmers there were being forced by British landlords to grow indigo on a portion of their land and sell it at a fixed low price. It was an exploitative system that left the farmers in perpetual poverty. Gandhi was invited to help, and he went to investigate the facts. The British authorities immediately ordered him to leave the district. Gandhi politely refused, stating he would disobey the order and accept the penalty. This was the first time he had challenged the British on their own soil with satyagraha. The government, unsure how to handle this strange and defiant man, eventually backed down and allowed him to continue his inquiry, which ultimately led to the abolition of the unjust system. The following year, 1918, saw Gandhi involved in two more significant struggles in his home state of Gujarat. First, he supported the textile mill workers of Ahmedabad, who were on strike for higher wages. To strengthen their resolve when the strike began to weaken, Gandhi undertook his first fast unto death in India. This act of self-suffering put immense moral pressure on the mill owners, who were his friends, and they quickly agreed to arbitration, resulting in a favorable settlement for the workers. Shortly after, he led the peasants of the Kedah district in a satyagraha campaign. A crop failure had left them unable to pay the harsh British land taxes. Gandhi advised them to refuse payment, and after a determined struggle, the government was forced to agree to a suspension of the tax for the duration of the famine. These early campaigns in Champaran, Ahmedabad, and Kedah were crucial. They were local struggles, but they demonstrated on a national stage that Gandhi's method of satyagraha could be effective against both colonial and Indian oppressors. He showed the Indian people, the farmers, the workers, the poor, that they possessed a power far greater than brute force. He gave them a tool to fight for their dignity and their rights. These victories established him as a powerful new force in Indian politics, a leader who was deeply connected to the masses and who was ready to challenge the British Empire not with guns or bombs, but with the unshakable power of truth and nonviolence. By 1920, Gandhi had become the undisputed leader of the Indian National Congress and was ready to launch his first nationwide movement against British rule. This was the non-cooperation movement. It was a response to the brutal Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Amritsar, where British troops had killed hundreds of unarmed Indians, and to the British government's broken promises of self-rule. Gandhi called upon Indians to withdraw all cooperation from the British administration. He urged students to leave government schools, lawyers to boycott British courts, and citizens to boycott foreign goods, especially cloth. The movement was a massive success, uniting Hindus and Muslims and bringing the machinery of the colonial state to a near standstill. The symbol of this defiance was the spinning wheel, or charkha, which encouraged self-reliance and a rejection of British textiles. The movement continued for 2 years with remarkable discipline, but in 1922 an incident of violence in the town of Chauri Chaura deeply pained Gandhi. A mob of protesters, provoked by the police, attacked a police station and killed several officers. For Gandhi, the principle of nonviolence was absolute. He believed that the Indian people were not yet ready for a purely nonviolent struggle, and to the shock of many of his colleagues, he immediately called off the entire national movement. Perhaps the most iconic act of civil disobedience in modern history was the Salt March of 1930. The British had a law that made it illegal for Indians to produce or sell salt, a basic necessity of life, and imposed a heavy tax on it. To protest it, Gandhi, now aged 61, decided to march 240 miles from his ashram in Sabarmati to the coastal village of Dandi. He started with just 78 followers, but as the march progressed through villages, thousands more joined him. The world watched as this frail man in a loincloth led a peaceful army to the sea. On April 6, he reached Dandi, bent down, and picked up a lump of salty mud, publicly breaking the salt law. This simple act was a signal to the entire nation. Across India, millions of people began to make and sell salt illegally. The British government responded with mass arrests, imprisoning over 60,000 people, including Gandhi. But the movement could not be stopped. The Salt March had shattered the myth of the empire's power, and had filled the Indian people with a newfound sense of pride and confidence. The final major push came in 1942 during World War II. Gandhi launched the Quit India movement, demanding an immediate end to British rule. His slogan was, "Do or die." The British reacted swiftly, arresting Gandhi and the entire Congress leadership, but the call for independence had now become an unstoppable force. After decades of struggle, the moment of India's freedom was finally at hand. The Second World War had left the British Empire exhausted and financially drained, making it impossible to hold on to its vast colonial possessions. The relentless pressure from the Indian freedom movement led by Gandhi had made independence inevitable. The British government, under Prime Minister Clement Attlee, agreed to grant India its freedom. However, this long-awaited triumph was overshadowed by a looming tragedy. The demand for a separate Muslim nation, championed by Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Muslim League, had grown too powerful to ignore. Gandhi was heartbroken by the prospect of dividing the country. He had fought his entire life for a united India, a nation where Hindus and Muslims would live as brothers. He called the partition a vivisection of the motherland. August 15, 1947, the day of independence, was a day of immense joy for many, but for Gandhi, it was a day of profound sorrow. When the bells of freedom rang out in Delhi, Gandhi was not there to celebrate. He was in Calcutta, a city engulfed in the flames of communal violence between Hindus and Muslims. The announcement of partition had unleashed an unprecedented wave of rioting and massacres across the northern part of the subcontinent. Millions of people were forced to flee their ancestral homes, becoming refugees overnight in one of the largest and most violent migrations in human history. In the midst of this madness, the 77-year-old Gandhi walked barefoot through the riot-torn streets, pleading for peace. He began a fast unto death, vowing not to eat until the violence stopped. His presence and his fast had a miraculous effect. The leaders of the warring communities, shamed by the sacrifice of this frail old man, came to him and pledged to end the fighting. A fragile peace returned to the city. He performed similar miracles of peace in other riot-hit areas, including Delhi. He was a one-man boundary force, as the last British viceroy, Lord Mountbatten, called him, achieving what thousands of soldiers could not. While the politicians were celebrating the birth of new nations, Gandhi was tending to the wounds of a divided people, trying to heal the deep gashes left by hatred and fear. His greatest victory was bittersweet, achieved at the cost of his cherished dream of a united India. In the early evening of January 30th, 1948, just a few months after India gained its freedom, Gandhi was walking to his daily prayer meeting on the grounds of Birla House in Delhi. He was frail, and leaned on the shoulders of his grandnieces for support. As he made his way through the small crowd, a young Hindu nationalist named Nathuram Godse stepped before him. Godse bowed in a gesture of respect, then pulled out a pistol and fired 3 shots into Gandhi's chest at point-blank range. Gandhi fell to the ground, uttering what many believe were his final words, "He Ram," which means, "O God." The man who had faced down an empire with non-violence had been struck down by an act of hatred from one of his own countrymen. The assassin, Godse, was a Hindu extremist who believed that Gandhi was too accommodating to Muslims. The news of his death sent a shockwave of grief and horror across India and the world. The light, as Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru so movingly said, had gone out of their lives. Gandhi's death was his final unintended act of satyagraha. The shock of his murder helped to quell the communal violence that had plagued the subcontinent. The man who had lived for Hindu-Muslim unity became, in his death, a martyr for that cause. His funeral was a testament to the love and reverence he commanded. Millions of people lined the streets of Delhi to catch a final glimpse of the man they called Bapu, or Father. His life was a message in itself, an extraordinary journey from a shy boy in Porbandar to the father of the world's largest democracy. He had shown that one man, armed with nothing but truth and courage, could indeed change the world. The legacy of Mahatma Gandhi extends far beyond the borders of India. His philosophy of non-violent resistance has become a blueprint for social justice movements across the globe. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. in the American Civil Rights Movement and Nelson Mandela in the fight against apartheid in South Africa explicitly cited Gandhi as their inspiration. His ideas continue to influence activists fighting for peace, human rights, and environmental sustainability today. He proved that morality could be a powerful political force, and that one does not need to hold official power to be a leader. Gandhi's life remains a timeless and powerful reminder that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the search.